Good morning. We are delighted that you're here. We want to thank our chapel worship team for their ministry this morning. We're grateful that you're here, especially if you're a visitor this morning. We want to extend an Eastern University warm welcome to you. And I also see my colleague James Warren in EAPE, and if you're from EAPE this morning, we want to welcome you also. This is a very special chapel when we have our patron saints here in the audience. Now, for you, those of you who are first-year students, you don't realize that today we have those who have really shaped the institution for decades upon decades, Dr. Tony and Peggy Campolo. I affectionately call them the patron saints because of their commitment to this university. Dr. Campolo with his teaching of sociology, but also Peggy with her mentoring and advising and advocating for students over so many years. They have a wonderful, wonderful legacy. This is not your eulogy, so don't worry. I'm not summarizing anything here. Also, too, Tony, just to let you know, we're going live this morning in chapel on web stream, so we'll put a little makeup on or anything like that. No, we'll be fine. One of the things about being a patron saint, and I realized that last week we had Dr. Deborah Heath Thornton, who is the executive dean of the Campolo College of Graduate and Professional Studies, named for Dr. Campolo and his family. And one of the things is when you go into the lobby of the Eagle Learning Center, if you turn quickly to your right, you see something there in dedication to Dr. Campolo. And when I went in there just recently, my academic discipline is New Testament studies. I just kind of stared into the bust of Dr. Campolo that was done wonderfully well by one of our alumnus, Dr. John Lazzarati, in 2008. But I couldn't help but have just a moment flashback of perhaps what this reminded me of. And it was somebody who I think a very powerful person, and I realized Nero had a dark side, so I'm not suggesting Dr. Campolo does. But I also realized that, like Dr. Campolo, he in many ways have had this great impact. And to top it off, I was just visiting the prayer chapel recently, and lo and behold, I saw something there that I had never seen before in tribute to Dr. Campolo. Yes, it was something. There is a new campus ministry group honoring the Campolos. No, but enough with this silliness. Enough about that. Also, Dr. Campolo will be celebrating a birthday this month, so happy birthday to you, Tony, and continue good health. Would you please give a warm, loving Eastern University welcome to our very own Dr. Tony Campolo.
I hardly know what to say after that introduction. I'm overwhelmed. If Jesus was here and was asked a simple question, what would you like the graduates of Eastern University to be like? What qualities would you hope they would embody? In what way would you like their lives to be shaped by this institution? I have a pretty good idea of what he would say. I think he would go to the Beatitudes. I think he would cite the things that he said in the Beatitudes and say, I wish these qualities, these virtues, would be evident in the lives of the students of Eastern. You know the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit. What an incredibly deep concept that is. The poor in spirit. I tried to research what that was all about. The closest I could get to what I think it means is blessed are those who are exhausted, whose spirits are worn out because they have given themselves empathetically in caring for others. I can think of my own failures in this respect. When I was teaching at the University of Pennsylvania, I had a very large class, 1,500 students that met in Irvine Auditorium. And one day after a lecture, I was up in my office and I had 101 things to do. And a student came in and sat down and asked for some elaboration on what I had said about the sociological theories of Emil Durkheim. I answered his question in a very perfunctory manner. I gave him the information he asked. I explained it and made sure he understood it with clarity, and then he said, okay, and he left. And he went back to the super block. That's the name of the dormitory where he lived on the Penn campus. Went up to the 25th floor, and an hour later, jumped to his death. And I was stunned over that. And I realized he had not come to talk about Emil Durkheim. My mistake was that I only heard what he said. When Jesus talked to people, he not only heard what they said, he heard what they meant. He empathized with their emotions. He felt his way into their souls. He not only looked at them, he looked into them. The scripture says he knew what was in people. In my busyness, I didn't empathize. Sometimes we're too tired. Sometimes we're too busy. But what Jesus would want for the students of Eastern is that they be the kind of empathetic people who have time to feel the hurts of others, to listen, to care. In the book of Luke, the Beatitudes are given, and they're different. There it says just, blessed are the poor, period. And then, in case you've missed the message, it says, woe unto you who are rich. This troubles me. But there is no question that Bonhoeffer interprets that passage correctly when he says, not blessed are the poor in the sense, lucky are those people who are impoverished in the world. He is really referring to this. Blessed are those who have become poor because they have used all of their resources to respond to the needs of those who are downtrodden and beaten. We are a privileged class, we know it. We are the world's financial elite. And the scripture says, be careful, rich people. How do you use your money? For what do you invest? In what do you invest? And are you ready to use your money to care for the poor and the needy around us? And that leads to the next of the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who mourn. You know, I think that most of us have a form of what has been called decaffeinated Christianity. Decaffeinated Christianity is kind of like decaffeinated coffee. It tastes like the real thing, but it doesn't keep us awake at night. Real Christianity may keep you awake at night as you mourn for those who mourn. Weep with those who weep. Jesus wept. I always liked that verse because when anybody in our Sunday school would say, does anybody have a Bible verse that can quote with accuracy and perfection? I'd always raise my hand and quote, Jesus wept. You probably did the same thing. Jesus wept. He looked over the city of Jerusalem and he wept, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how oft would I have gathered together as a hen gathereth her brood, but you would not come. In Lorraine Hansberry's wonderful play, Raisin in the Sun, a young man asks his mother for some money. The father has died and left the family some money, and Bernitha, the sister, wants to use the money to go to medical school. The mother wants to use the money to buy a house, a little house with flower beds. And the son says, but I've never had a chance. And in the racist society in which he was raised, he never did have a chance. I've never had an opportunity to make anything of myself. I have a friend, and he wants to go into business with me. And with this money, we can go into business, and I can make something of myself. And I promise I'll bring home the money that we earn, and we'll take care of Bernitha, and she can go to school, and we'll buy the house. And against her better judgment, the mother gives the man, the money. Her son takes it to the friend, and the friend is not a friend. He leaves town with the money, and he has to come home and tell his mother and his sister that he's been fooled, he's been tricked, he's been robbed and the money is gone. Bernitha tears into him with a string of epithets and curses that shock him. And finally, the mother interrupts and says, I thought I taught you to love him. Bernitha says, love him? There's nothing left to love. The mother speaks again. There's always something left to love, honey. And if you ain't learned that, you ain't learned nothing. When do you think it's time to love somebody? When things are going well and they've done good and they're successful? Well, that ain't the time at all. The time to love somebody is when he's at his lowest and the world's done whipped him so. Have you cried for that boy today? Bernitha, did you cry for that boy today? What a good line. Did somebody else's failure, did somebody else falling,